Is it a bad time to retire? Well, you look at the stock market, maybe you think yes, maybe you think no. All depends on how you're set up. Do you have a strategy or not? So let's talk about it this week here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with Phil and I as we talk about the market. Phil, we're going to have to do it this month. I mean, we try to every month anyway. We try to talk about it at least every month anyway. A lot of volatility, my friend, and you know, people just continue to, you know, we don't do well. This is not news. There's no news flash here with volatility. Yeah, people don't like volatility. Markets don't like uncertainty. I mean, that's where we're at, right? There's a lot of uncertainty out there, so markets are volatile. Yep. Bouncing back and forth depending on what happens to hit the news that day. So it's it is a very unsettling to some extent point in time, but I mean, this is what markets do. This isn't anything new. It's not like the first time we've gone through and we've had this amount of volatility. This is no, not at all. This is normal. This is investing. It's not always roses and puppies and straight 22, up. It's not always 22% up every year. Right? It doesn't work that way. It'd be nice if it did, but it doesn't work that way. Well, at the time we're taping this, we are, for a 30-day window, we're down about 4.5%. Mm-hmm. Year to date, it's 4.8%, so not a huge difference. We're in the third. We're in April, right? So we're in the second week of April. So, running that second quarter. So don't panic. I think is always it's always the key word. I know it's like overkill. We say it often, but it's hard for people not to do. If you're 70, let me change this. If you're 70, are you panicked versus if you're 55? Right. And I mean, at the end of the day, this is what markets do. We know that we're going to go through these cycles. We've been talking about it for a long time that, markets go through these ups and down trends, corrections. It's good for a market, right? It's not good to keep building and building and building. It's like having a rubber band, you keep stretching. Sure. At some point it has to come back. That old concept of what we call reversion to the mean. Right. So it's natural. It's just part of investing long-term. So is it comfortable? No, absolutely not. Never is. But having a plan can help, right? So, that's where the first step in not panicking comes in, is that because oftentimes and I've had one or two clients just a little unnerving and wanted to talk about it, which is fine. Absolutely. Let's talk, right? Yeah, definitely. I'd rather you talk and do something extreme and jump out of the market for, because you're not certain at this point. Well, right. Which is what people will do. Which can be a problem long-term, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So have that discussion first with your advisor to say, hey, what do you think? And if you have a plan, it should have already kind of built this in, right? So for our clients, and we've talked about this many, many times, we bucketize money. So the money that they're spending is in that soon bucket. It's a much less volatile bucket. So it doesn't have these high ups and downs and volatility. Mm-hmm. That's their safe, secure money for the next 5-10 years as they're in retirement. Later money, you're going to have some volatility, but that's just part of investing. That volatility over time doesn't hurt you if it's positioned the right way. So that's the first thing is don't panic. Just understand this is normal. It's natural. Yeah. If you're positioned the right way, if you've done the planning up front, and you've already planned for this and you've got money positioned to support your spending and can handle volatility, this isn't something to panic for. Now, that being said, go ahead. I was going to say, you're talking about risk exposure or a little bit, correct, right? Your risk tolerance, right? And I was just talking with another advisor the other day that made me think of this. And he was like, we pulled back about 10%, overall so far, right? Since the peak. Now it bounced back up a little bit. So again, I just gave the year-to-date number. So it's not really actually at 10%. It's only at about 4.5%, right around 5%. 10% being a correction. Corrections happen. They're normal. They happens all the time. And he's like, this is probably the most painless 10% correction I've ever seen, because it went down 10 pretty quickly. Then it came back up 5, and now we're kind of hovering back and forth around this area. Right. And he said, I said that to a client. He said, I had a client who went, maybe for you, but it really hurt me. And that's the point. That's the personal aspect of it. He's like,
correct.
Yeah, but your plan is set to where long term, you don't need that money right now for another 15 or 18, 20 years. So I get it that it stinks to see it drop 40 grand, but in this guy's case, but again, the quote unquote line of it always comes back in the long run is true as long as you have the time horizon.
Correct. And that again is why we do the time horizons we do, because volatility over longer periods of time, although it's still there,
right,
doesn't affect you. Is really what it comes down to. It's that concept of sequence of returns we've talked about many times of,
right.
That volatility, when it can hurt you is if you're spending from that account. Now it's a problem.
Sure.
So the other thing, and again, I wouldn't panic, but who should be concerned about this is somebody that maybe is always been in the company 401k and the most aggressive. They said it 20 years ago when they first started, have never changed it.
Sure.
It's in the high aggressive growth and international models, and they've never touched it. And they've done really well for 20 years, but they're retiring this year. That's a problem.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You need to look at it because we're going to have volatility. And if you're planning on spending from that money, then yeah, you unfortunately will have some pain from this that can be damaging. And I don't know their scenario, but could actually damage maybe even the long-term viability of a plan, because they don't have risk positioned the right way.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I think that's the conversation piece, right? So right. If you are feeling panicked, you go and talk and you have an advisor, you go and say, hey, yep. I'm real nervous, man. How we looking? Yep. Like, and just update a little bit, right?
Right.
I think that's the value, a huge piece of the value you get for paying the fees that you pay Correct. To your advisor is talk me off the freaking ledge, man. Right.
Just reassure me. Hey, we're good. Right. And I mean, that was a discussion I actually had with another client yesterday as we're going through his taxes he retired, but then took on this contract position and it's ending this next year. And he's a little panicked of, hey, let's see what's going on in the market. And, I don't know if I'm feeling good about retirement. And it's like, well, we can get back together again and run through the numbers. But I said, based on everything we've run before, you're good. And we looked at his accounts and he's nowhere near what the markets have done because, again, we've got money positioned for him to start spending in that soon bucket. So, but absolutely. I mean, if you're working with an advisor, you have these concerns, don't have sleepless nights, have a discussion. Let them walk you through your plan again, just to get the comfort level and the reassurance. And if it's still something you're not comfortable with, then have that discussion too to say, hey, I get it, but I think that's just a little bit too much risk. Then make some changes. But that, to me, that's where those kind of discussions and we try to have those up front to make sure we know that we're going to get there. If you're invested in these risk profiles, this is what they've done historically. So at some point in time, you're going to have this, what we call a max drawdown of whatever it is, 10, 15%. Is that something you're okay with?
Yeah.
So that is an important discussion to have way ahead of time, because having that discussion when you're down 10%, it's too late.
So and it's a different feel for sure.
And it's a different feel. I get it.
Yeah.
And it's not like, well, the advisor trying to say, well, I told you, but it's the reality of how things work, right? So you need to have those discussions early on to know that, hey, this is the possibility. It's happened before. Highly probable it's going to happen again. That's just how markets do. This is where it's positioned. Are you good with that long term?
Yeah.
Now, and having that reassurance going forward as you're reviewing the plan.
The Tax Smart Retiree is your comprehensive guide to mastering tax efficiency for a flourishing retirement. You will find indispensable advice and actionable strategies designed to enhance tax savings, maximize Social Security benefits, protect against market volatility, and develop a customized retirement plan. To get your free ebook, click the link in the show notes of today's episode and download your copy of the Tax Smart Retiree right now.
Yeah, for sure. Now, for clarity's sake here, we're taping this on April Fool's Day. We're taping this on the 1st. Not that has anything to do with it, but the tariffs drop tomorrow. Right? So the April 2nd. So that's some of the volatility, obviously, we've been seeing the last couple of days leading up to, the numbers today. So, what's it going to look like? We're trying to, like once a month, we're trying to have a review, you and I are, of just kind of where things sit, because we knew every single month it was going to be something, because of so many administrative changes, right? We've seen inflation coming down. We've seen some different things here and there. But again, the market, with all these tariff conversations and the overweighted of the tech, which we talked about quite a bit, right, has just made the market pretty choppy. So in the end, I think panicking is obviously the wrong thing to do. And we all know it, but how do you stop from doing it? It's got to be having that conversation and that sounding board. I think it just has to be. Well,
it's that, and stop watching the news. Right?
Well, that's true. That's true too.
The reality is it's somebody that watches their investment account every single day.
Every day. Yeah.
That's not healthy. You're not enjoying retirement, because it's a good day. It's a bad day. It's a bad, you're all over the board emotionally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Trust your advisor, that they've got a plan long-term. Absolutely talk to them, check in on things. I'm not saying don't ever open a statement. Absolutely check in to see what's going on.
What actually is affecting you, right? What's actually affecting you now, right? Because I think a lot of people, we do easily lose sight of that, Phil, that this is later money. I know we just talked about that. I won't beat it to death. But hopefully, if you do have the right plan in place, this is later money, even if you're 60.
Right. And even with tariffs, and we've kind of talked about this the last time. I mean, this isn't our first go-around with tariffs. It's happened before. We know there's volatility when they get introduced because it's uncertainty. We don't know how things are going to happen. And granted, it's a little different this time. They're broader, right? Now we're doing this reciprocal tariff.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, markets typically kind of price in ahead of time bad news or good news. Either way, they're always way overreacting one way or the other. It's just.
But with the news happening like every hour, I think the market goes wow.
Yeah, it's kind of nervous right now.
Right.
But so
it's funny that we say that too, because I saw one of these reporters say that they're exhausted covering this administration, because this reporter was like, we knew that by like 11 a.m. on Friday, we were done for the weekend. We knew that we weren't going to have anything to do on Friday.
Nothing was going to happen.
And there was nothing going to happen over the weekend. And like this administration, you got to be ready to report the news or,
changes are happening,
or the false news, or wherever you feel like landing in that conversation. But regardless, there's something happening constantly. This administration is moving, which I think there's a reason for that. I think, if you look at it, I think he knows he's got a very short window to get things done.
Correct.
And so therefore, that's why we're also seeing this volatility, right? Because it's just so fast and furious. Yeah, it's fast and furious.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of it, it's expected. We're going to have volatility. Don't panic. Have the discussion with your advisor for sure. This already should have been built into a plan, so the money that is seeing some of this volatility, or at least the higher levels, not to say a more conservative isn't going to have some volatility. It's investment.
Absolutely.
It's not money in the bank.
Right.
So you're going to have some volatility, but it should be, the risk should be positioned appropriately.
Okay.
But have those discussions to make sure you're comfortable, kind of bring your comfort level down to where, okay, I'm good with it again. I understand. We're okay. We're not going to run out of money next week.
Right.
I'm not going to have to refigure retirement out. That's not what's going on. So
hopefully, right. You can have a little sigh, right. Just kind of let out a little stress, and then, keep moving. I love it though. Right. Turn off the news.
I mean, turn off the news.
That's the biggest thing.
News in whatever your opinion is on it. I mean, at the end of the day, you've
got mainstream news, doesn't matter what it is.
I'm not picking sides of news. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the purpose of news is to sell advertising. That's it. It's all about viewers, and how many eyes are on the screen. So how they do that is through sensationalization. The more oh, it's crazy. Oh, it's this or oh, it's that.
And it's been that way a long time. Right?
It has moved that way for years. That is our news the way it works.
Oh yeah. Whether it's this administration or the prior administration or Obama's administration, whatever, you could go back a number of years. If you see it, say if the Dow moved, 1%, they make it sound inflammatory. Huge drop today as the Dow goes 1%. Really, that's a huge drop, right?
Right.
So you got to sometimes when you read these headlines, think about it for a second and process it through. Is it really as inflammatory as it actually as the headline makes you feel, right?
Or a lot of times they'll do it in points. Dow drops X points, and it sounds like, oh, it's this big number, but in relation to where the Dow is today, well, that's a small percentage.
Yeah.
If it was that number 10 years ago, well, that's a different story. It's totally different percentage.
Yeah.
It comes down to percentage. So I mean, there's again, just do what you need to do to be comfortable with what's going on, but don't. With anything in life, don't
freak out. Try not to freak out.
Just don't obsess. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
Especially with this, if hopefully you've got an advisor. If not, seek some professional advice on it to get your comfort level.
Right.
And don't make quick panic decisions because unfortunately, looking back, even in 12 months, chances are you're going to say, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Well, and we'll see where we're at next month because, like I said, I wanted to start this conversation by just saying where we're at the time that we were taping this. You may be consuming this data; it may be completely different at the time you're watching this. But at the time we're doing it, we're down 4.5% for the calendar year, right? So for the 3 months, right? We've had January, February, and March. We are into early April here, so at 4.5% is not a panic. It's not panic zone. No, I mean
it's especially coming off where we've been, right? We've had a couple of really good years. So this just happens. It's reversion to mean. I mean, markets I always think of it kind of like the market's letting off some steam, right? You ever have a pot boil? I mean,
a little pressure.
It's got to let off that steam, or otherwise it's going to blow up, right? Same thing's going on. I mean, it can't grow at the rates it has been growing forever. It just doesn't work that way.
If we were closer to Thanksgiving, I'd say you can't put your oil level too high in your deep fryer and then drop the turkey in because it'll blow over. So
I'm sure there's a meme for that somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there's something somewhere. So, well, if you are panicking and you don't have an advisor, you do need some help and you need to talk with someone, get on Phil's calendar, have a conversation, reach out to him. You can find him online at the show links descriptions below. We have all that stuff in the show notes each and every week, whether it's Apple or Spotify or YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to us on the podcast on any of the platforms. Obviously, YouTube is outpacing everything else. Everybody kind of wants to watch stuff in video now. So hit the subscribe button. If you supports the channel, we certainly would appreciate it. If you dig the content, a little thumbs up and a notification bell gets you new episodes when they drop. And we do one just about every single week, unless one of us is sick with the flu or on vacation. For the most part, we pretty much do them all the time. So if you got some questions, need some help, check below, and we'll see you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts.
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.